Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. The January 6th committee just talked to one of the people who worked most closely with then President Trump around January 6th, the former White House counsel, Pat Cipollone. And we're learning this morning that Donald Trump is waiving claims of executive privilege for Steve Bannon, who's now indicating that he might be willing to testify in public. Joining me now is a member of the January 6th committee, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren of California. Congresswoman, let me just start with that news about Steve Bannon that we're learning this morning. Will Bannon testify before your committee, and what specific questions might you have for him?
Well, we got the letter around midnight from his lawyer saying that he would testify, and we have wanted him to testify. So the committee, of course, has not yet had a chance to discuss it, but I expect that we will be hearing from him, and there are many questions that we have for him.
Would it be a public hearing, or would it be behind closed doors?
Ordinarily, we do depositions. This goes on for hour after hour after hour. We want to get all our questions answered, and you can't do that in a live format.
You heard from another key witness this week, White House counsel Pat Cipollone, who sat with you on Friday. Your committee said he gave critical testimony that shows, quote, Donald Trump's supreme dereliction of duty, unquote. What does the committee mean by that? And are we going to hear excerpts of Cipollone's video testimony in this week's hearings?
Yes, we will have some excerpts of Mr. Cipollone's testimony. He was able to provide information on basically all of the critical issues that we're looking at, and including the president's what I would call dereliction of duty on the day of January 6th. So, yes, that was important. As you know, the committee rules don't allow us to disclose the testimony without a vote of the committee. That hasn't happened yet, but it was important testimony.
Did he discuss Trump considering seizing the voting machines, or Trump considering declaring martial law to seize the voting machines?
Well, I think you're going to have to wait for the hearing later this week on that. As I say, we haven't had a vote to disclose the testimony. Let me just say this. I think he did provide important insights on those very subjects.
Former Mark Meadows aide Cassidy Hutchinson testified that Pat Cipollone said that something along the lines of they would get charged with every crime imaginable if Trump went up to the Capitol. Two sources tell CNN that the committee did not ask Pat Cipollone whether he had said that. Is that true? And if so, why wouldn't you ask him that?
We never call in witnesses to corroborate other witnesses or to give their reaction to other witnesses. But I will say that he did interview with us for 8 hours and provide very insightful information, and that augments and certainly does not dispute Ms. Hutchinson's testimony. So stay tuned for this week's hearings. We think they'll be worth attending.
We just learned from federal prosecutors that Oath Keepers, that far-right militia group, members brought explosives to the D.C. area around January 6th. Will the American people ultimately see a direct link between Donald Trump and these far-right militia groups, some of the members of which have been charged with seditious conspiracy?
We are going to be connecting the dots during these hearings between these groups and those who were trying to, in government circles to overturn the election. So we do think that this story is unfolding in a way that is very serious and quite credible.
Well, we heard Cassidy Hutchinson testify along the lines of Trump telling Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, to talk to Roger Stone and others, Mike Flynn, and Stone and Flynn had relationships with some of these far-right militia groups. Are those the dots you're talking about connecting?
Some of them, but certainly there are, we're going to be making some connections that are important for people to understand the full run of the events and the events leading up to the 6th. So, yes, I hope that our hearing on Tuesday will be enlightening on these issues.
Was President Trump aware that these far-right militia groups, the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, were in the mob when he told the mob to go to the Capitol?
Well, I think you have to reach your own conclusions, but based on the events leading up to the day, I think that would be a logical conclusion.
Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes said through his attorney on Friday that he's willing to testify to your committee, but only if it's live and in public. Will you take him up on that offer?
Well, I believe he's in prison right now, isn't he? Being held for his trial. So this may be a pitch to be released. I'll just say that we have already had information from Mr. Rhodes.
You have information from Mr. Rhodes? He's already testified before the committee separately?
Well, I don't want to go into all the details, but I think this is a pitch to get out of jail free card for Mr. Rhodes.
Before we go, we know about the hearings coming this Tuesday. I believe there is another one expected Thursday in the evening. What more can you tell us about any future hearings? Will this be the end of it, or do you expect more hearings to come perhaps later in the month or even in August?
Well, I always let the chairman and vice chair make the announcements on hearings, but let me just say this, we're working over the weekend to put the final touches on the hearing for Tuesday. There is so much information. It's overwhelming, really, and you can't have a 10-hour hearing. So we'll have a report towards the fall, I believe. Whether there'll be additional hearings, we haven't decided that yet.
And who are we going to hear from on Tuesday?
I'm not going to announce the witnesses today.
It was worth a shot. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Appreciate getting up so early in California.
That's okay. I was up early before.
All right. Thanks so much.